Heya Cryptozens, welcome back to the Crypto Overnighter. My name is Nikodemus and we do crypto news analysis nightly at 10 p.m. And keep in mind, none of this should be considered financial advice. Congratulations! If you can hear my voice, you made it to the weekend, because it is Friday, February 10th, 2023. And the crypto community is still reeling as people think about the implications of the combination of the Securities Exchange Commission Chair Gary Gensler's actions going after Kraken, combined with Gensler's assertion that staking coins are securities and as such they fall under his purview. Now, as far as the Kraken charges go, we know that on February 9th, the SEC gleefully announced that they had settled charges with the exchange. They got Kraken for, quote, failing to register the offer and sale of their crypto asset staking as a service program. Because the SEC is going ahead and they're declaring staking as a service to be a security. And as a result, Kraken has agreed to settle charges by paying $30 million in fines. Now, as we said last night, unlike the recent examples of BlockFi and Nexo, Kraken will automatically unstake your crypto. And with BlockFi and Nexo, as long as you didn't touch it, that crypto was still there, staked, earning rewards. And the community has reacted. Adam Cochran called out the SEC, called Gensler, quote, an agent of the anti-crypto agenda. And it's Cochran's position that this is not balanced. He points out that the SEC and Sam Bankman-Fried, they had a cozy relationship. While Kraken and Coinbase, these are two American exchanges who are trying very hard to be legally compliant, these are the companies that the SEC chooses to go after. It's absurd, and not only is it absurd, it's damn suspicious to me. And Kristen Smith, she's the CEO of the Blockchain Association. She said this shows exactly why it's the U.S. Congress and not a room full of regulators that should be working with industry insiders on new legislation. And she echoed shades of CEO boss Brian Armstrong's commentary, because in her statement, she said, quote, otherwise, the U.S. risks driving innovation offshore and taking online freedoms away from individual users. And it's not just the people who work in crypto. Tom Emmer is a U.S. congressman, and frankly, he seems pretty comfortable with taking shot at Gensler's performance. Well, Emmer took to Twitter to talk about the situation. He said that staking services will be important for, quote, building the next generation of the internet. And he's exactly right when he says that the agencies, as he calls it, purgatory strategy, that's going to drive talent offshore and that's going to hurt everyday Americans the most. Because to get to those services, they're going to have to go offshore as well. Founder of Bankless, Ryan Sean Adams, said that the SEC should have looked at other measures for dealing with Kraken rather than just starting up with charges. Quote, you could have mandated proof of reserves, required staking transparency, supported decentralized staking. Instead, we just got another Gary G. banhammer to the head, and we have no confidence that you won't come for decentralized staking next. And I think Ryan's exactly right to worry about decentralized staking. I think DeFi is next on the agenda for American regulators. And we're still in a chicken and the egg situation here. The regulator hit Kraken with $30 million in fines for not being registered, but they won't tell you what the actual registration process is. You have to go visit Chair Gensler in his chambers, and then he's going to tell you how much money you owe, at the end of which you're still not registered and you still can't offer the product. That's even more true for Kraken. In their settlement, Kraken agreed never to relaunch their staking business for U.S. customers again, legally or not, registered or not. This feels intentional. Now, the one exception to the auto unstaking that Kraken was talking about is staked Ethereum, because that won't be unlocked until after the Shanghai upgrade, believed to be coming sometime this year. Which is good, because Kraken is the fourth largest Ethereum validator. What would the aftershocks of all of that Ethereum becoming unstaked be? Now, some people did take advantage of the opportunity to advance their own agenda. Michael Saylor has long held that Ethereum and other proof-of-stake cryptocurrencies are all securities. He is right to point out that when you do stake your crypto on a central exchange, you lose control of that crypto. Remember, not your keys, not your cheese. And we're going to come back to that keys and cheats discussion in a bit. Jake Chervinsky of the Blockchain Association has a different take on the situation. He rightly points out that this is a settlement, it's not precedent, which means it can be undone later on. And he brings up the question of whether Kraken's decision to settle was a legal decision or an economic one. Also reacting to the Kraken story are members of the SEC, because apparently those events may have taken even agency insiders by surprise. Because according to Crypto Mom, the SEC didn't even try to get the industry's view on things before attacking staking as a service. This comes to us via SEC Commissioner Hester Pierce, aka Crypto Mom, for her strong pro-crypto sentiments. She said, quote, "Today, the SEC shut down Kraken's staking program and counted it as a win for the investors. I disagree and therefore dissent." On February 9th, she put her own agency on blast in a statement titled Kraken Down. She said the regulation by enforcement is, quote, "not an efficient or fair way of regulating." She also slammed her employer for shutting down a program, quote, "that served people well." She said, quote, "Using enforcement actions to tell people what the law is in an emerging industry is not an efficient or fair way of regulating. Moreover, staking services are not uniform, so one-off enforcement actions and cookie-cutter analysis does not cut it." She said the SEC was being lazy and paternalistic. She said the enforcer should have started with a public process to develop a working registration process, one that provides valuable information to investors, which would be consistent with other sentiments that the commissioner has shared. She's talked about the SEC being a safe harbor for token projects looking to build on DeFi. The devs would get like a 3-year grace period, for example, where they're exempt from some SEC actions while they get their business rolling. In fact, she released an updated version of that proposal back in April of 2021. And she wasn't done there. No. On Friday, Pierce was at a student conference at the University of Pennsylvania. During that conference, the commissioner said that the SEC's suit against Kraken is just the latest example of regulation by enforcement. She said that they didn't even try to sit down with people in the industry and talk about staking. She said that the SEC has known about staking for a long time, which, yeah, everybody's known about staking for a long time. But her point is that the decision to strike now was arbitrary. Her word, arbitrary. She also said that targeting Kraken as the first victim of Chair Gensler's new strategy, also arbitrary. She said, quote, "Yesterday's decision basically said, let's just shut it down. That can't be the answer." And so the fact that Kraken is now banned from ever offering staking against U.S. customers again seems particularly bad, especially since, so far, Kraken is the only one. So far. All the while, Gensler seems happy with how things have turned out so far. He's pointing at Kraken in the agreement and the $30 million fine, and he's holding them out as examples to the industry, telling them to take note, or it could happen to them. He said, quote, "Companies like Kraken can offer investment contracts and investment schemes, but they have to offer full, fair, and truthful disclosure. And this puts the investors who watch your program in a better position. That's our basic bargain." That was from Gensler's appearance Friday on CNBC's Squawk Box, during which Andrew Ross Sorkin asked him whether this enforcement action applies to yield-bearing programs like Coinbase's Earn program. In response, Chair Gensler said it wasn't the terms, lend, yield, earn. It's not the terms that make them securities as much as the underlying economics. He said, quote, "If someone's taking their tokens and transferring it to that platform, the platform controls it. And guess what happens if they go bankrupt? You stand in line at the bankruptcy court." Now, we were just talking earlier about not your keys, not your cheese, right? And the sentiment of that is to support the concept of self-custody. That, in fact, you're not in possession and control of your crypto if you participate in some of these earned programs. Celsius is an example. People staked money on Celsius. Then Celsius imploded. People wanted their staked money back. Celsius said, "Oh no, what money? You signed that money over to me." And last January, a judge upheld that position, ruling that any crypto deposited on the Celsius platform for staking purposes belong to Celsius, not the customer. Gensler said, quote, "There's a saying in crypto that says, not your keys, not your coins. So those other platforms should take note of this and seek to come into compliance, do the proper disclosures and registration and the like." Now, Gensler said the SEC is using all of the tools available in order to bring market participants into compliance. When he was asked if the SEC's goal is to keep crypto out of the mainstream financial system, he said the SEC was technology neutral. He said, quote, "If this field has any chance of survival and success, it's time-tested rules and laws to protect the investing public disclosure for fair and truthful disclosure." He said that Apple and other large tech companies know how to register their offerings. He said it's time for crypto to learn to do so as well. He said, quote, "The runway is getting awfully short, and we're here to protect the investing public." So my question now is for the future. How wide is this crackdown eventually going to be? Is this the coming of the end for staking crypto in the US? Or is this a judgment on Kraken alone? Because the SEC seems to have a habit. They identify something sketchy, something they don't like, and then they go after it. Look at what happened with the ICOs, initial coin offerings. We saw it then. The SEC uses some tested, court-approved mechanism to break themselves into the case. And then, once they've asserted that they do have authority over the case based on that court-tested mechanism, then they get to work. They point out the things that they do or they don't like. They use enforcement actions to record what they believe was wrong. But they also use that court action to inform anybody interested what they have to avoid if they don't want a $30 million fine, for example, which is a very old method of informing behavior. Establish consequences for misbehavior and then punish. The problem is, we don't know what's wrong specifically. We're on the outside of an enforcement action looking in. But without access to the relevant facts of the case, we don't know if a particular decision is limited to those facts in those circumstances or not. That's the problem with regulation by enforcement. Nobody knows for sure if they're doing the right thing or not. They're just hoping not to get punished. And that's going to do it for us tonight. I want to thank you, my listeners, because when you stop listening, I will stop talking. If you enjoyed tonight's show, please like, follow, subscribe. Do something to let the algorithms know that people do like this show. In the meantime, we'll see you tomorrow night.